One time in my life, I felt that. What was my purpose? And sometimes you graduate out of high school, you look for that job, you look for that career, college, the degree. You still question, is this my purpose? Well, I want to tell you, until you find the center of your being, you will continue to walk and live, going through the motions. And how many people out there right now go through the motions? You may be making $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $200,000, $1,000,000 a year. You may be making $10,000 a year and not happy, going through the motions. Meaning, you go to job, you go to your work, you're not happy. Come home, you're angry with your parents, angry with your wife, angry with your kids, angry with yourself, not happy. Can't have a good time around your friends because your mind is wondering, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? Especially for men, because life is very, very challenging for a man. They expect us to be leaders. And when I say they, I'm talking about God created a man to be a leader, to be a fighter, to set examples in his home, in his house, for his wife, for his kids, for other men around him that look up to him. And how can you do that if you don't know what your true purpose is? Or if you're not happy with yourself and your position and where you're at? So let's take money out of this equation. Let's start talking about the purpose and how you're going to find your purpose. One piece of advice that I can give to you to find your purpose is to spend time with yourself. Spend time away from distractions, away from people who distract you, who take your time away from you. Now, when you talk about taking time away from you, I'm talking about taking time away from the things that you may enjoy. You may used to write, you don't do it anymore. You may used to sing, you don't do it anymore. You may used to read books and you don't do it anymore. You may, whatever your hobby is, try to get that back into your life. That's one part of your purpose, because you have this gift that you're not exercising, that you used to exercise, and you decided not to do that. That's one way of getting back into the groove of who you are, what you're created to do. Second thing is, the more time you spend alone with yourself, the more time that you will be able to understand who you are. When I mean understand who you are, I'm talking about without any outside interference, without any friends, without any peer pressure of wanting to be like someone else. The more time you spend alone, you're going to figure out, okay, what your purpose is. And I say that because of this. God will talk to you. You start seeking in those moments of not having any outside distractions. What happens is things become clear. Clarity sets in. And you're able to make decisions not based on what you saw that day or what you heard that day or what that person may have said to you. You're able to make decisions based on how you feel internally. Okay? So number one, we have time alone. Number two, spending time alone will clear your subconscious mind up so you can make your own decisions based on how you feel. Okay? So that's number two. Third thing is going without. Okay, I want to say going without. That means there's times where you can go without your friends, you can go without going out, you can go without other people around you. Okay? Going without eating, going without this, going without that.
that I will be another Reg Park. And so that's how I really developed my first rule that I always talk about to success is you got to have a very clear vision
Yes.
of where you want to go. Because if you don't have that, you're just floating around. And so, I was very fortunate that I created that vision. I was very fortunate that there was not the side kind of things going on. We didn't have a phone in our house. We didn't have a television in our house. At that time, there were no iPhones, there were no iPads, there was no computer. There was just really, you had all the time in the world to think and to really just sit quietly and to just visualize. And I always say that I feel sorry for kids today that are spending hours and hours on that iPhone or an iPad or computer, and they don't give themselves that chance to just settle back and to just figure out what do they want to do or who do they want to be. And so this is why I think that I made that kind of the rule number one is, visualize. And I always compare it to that you can have the best airplane in the world with the most advanced pilot. But if he doesn't know where to go, he's just going to fly around until it crashes. And that's what happens to you in life. If you don't know where you want to go and who you want to be, you eventually just float around and you eventually crash. And that's why a lot of people are unhappy.
Yeah.
They take drugs, or they drink, or the suicide rates. I think a lot of it has to do because people really don't have as much of a purpose and the mission and the vision and all of the things that drove me from the time I was like 15 years old. It was very clear which direction I want to go.
Yeah, I love that you start the book with that rule of have a clear vision, because when you hear about your childhood, it's not easy, it's tough, it's rough, it's harsh. There's so many internal challenges at home, there's external challenges, there's limitations that you're in a country that's obviously just survived a world war. It almost looks like there is no space to have vision.
That's right.
Like someone could argue that,
Yeah.
Arnold, how are you having a vision in this space? I think what's really interesting is sometimes we feel helpless because of where we're born, where we're from, our parenting structure, our surroundings. Some people struggle to have a vision because they say, well, how can I have a vision? Look where I am. And then some other people, they can't have a vision because when they see someone like Reg Park or Mr. Austria in your example, what they see is, oh, envy. I wish I had that, oh, why does he have that? Or maybe, I should have that. So I think we live in these two worlds where we either feel helpless or sometimes we feel envious and egotistical about visions. How did you allow yourself, or how did you develop that ability that even though around you, there wasn't that much success, there was more stress, but you saw Mr. Austria and were able to do that? Have you ever figured out what that was compared to everyone else you grew up around?
I just can tell you I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
I was unhappy with the reality of what was around me. The tough parents and the lack of food, and others had steaks. We didn't have the money for that. As a matter of fact, we never ate meat during the week. Now, today they would say, oh, this is really good because you were vegan as a kid, but it was more because of a lack of money. So we didn't have anything. So everywhere I looked, so I think to me, the only way really was, in order to be happy, is to create my own world and to visualize. That's why people sometimes read a lot, because they want to escape into another story, or the day they watch movies to go and to see to escape into another story and all this stuff. For me, that wasn't available. The first movie I ever saw was when I was 9 or 10 years old. So it was not the common thing in the village where I grew up to go to movies. And I remember there was this collapsible kind of a seat. I just fell right down on the floor because I had never even heard of a collapsible seat. That you have to fold it down. Yeah. So I folded it down, then waited a little bit, and then of course it went back up again, and I went right down on to the floor. So because of that world, that negative world, I had to kind of create my own world. So I was just always daydreaming of wonderful things. So I developed that art and he put a smile on my face.
Yeah.
So then clearly, when I then saw Mr. Austria or Mr. Universe, and I saw this guys and saw photographs of it, and read about it in the magazines, I created my vision, and I saw in that vision myself being up on that stage, and I saw myself, people screaming around me, and screaming Arnold, Arnold, and all this crazy stuff. It was all insane, crazy stuff, stuff that I never shared in those days with anybody.